Now, word lover, avid reader, spiritual seeker, Torah teacher and publisher Batya Bricker has released a handbook for brave Jewish girls and their mighty friends titled Goodnight Golda. The book is inspired by 32 Jewish heroines who have shaped Jewish history and the female mindset through the use of their wits, looks, talent and even perspective. Batya Bricker joins us now in studio to tell us more about the interesting stories shared through this offering. Batya, very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome.
Good morning, and good morning to your viewers.
Good to have you on the show this morning. First of all, take us through the inspiration behind penning this book. What's Goodnight Golda all about?
Well, the project started with the publishing of a series called Goodnight Stories for Rebel Girls. And it was a publishing phenomenon across the world. That was about 5-6 years ago.
Okay.
And the conversation was then started all over the world about what about a Jewish version? What about Jewish women? We need to celebrate their stories. And nobody ever did it. So here, me at the little tip of Africa decided that the time was right and started the project. And then COVID hit. So it was a time of despair and hopelessness. And the incredible thing about this project is that it showed me the possibility of the extraordinary in a time when all we were hoping for was ordinary, actually.
I'm actually quite fascinated about the title of the book. I mean, what is its significance?
Well, Golda Meir was the first Prime Minister of Israel, and she was not a simple hero. They called her the Iron Boba. Boba is grandmother in Yiddish. She was an iron lady. She was tough. She was a tough cookie. She lived on nicotine. She was a chain smoker, Turkish coffee. I'm sure she swore. Nobody tells you that, but I'm sure she did. And she wasn't your quintessential ladylike hero.
Sure.
And that's what I loved about her. I think that leadership is nuanced. She was not without her critics, but she made the state of Israel possible for the Jewish people and therefore earned my undying respect and love. So leadership and admiring heroes is not a simple thing. People are messy. Life is messy.
Sure.
No one is perfect. And I think that that's mainly what I wanted to celebrate in this book.
Okay. And this book contains about 32 stories, mainly from notable Jewish heroines.
Yes.
Tell us more about these stories and why it was so important to you to compile them into this book.
I think bravery comes in different guises. Fearlessness is many things. Sometimes it's speaking up against wrong. Sometimes it's saving people from suffering. But sometimes it's imagining a new world, imagining something new. And I wanted to celebrate all kinds of fearlessness from the biblical times till today. And so I have characters like Queen Esther from the Bible, but also Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who is from our times. And then I also wanted to travel the world. I wanted heroines from all over. Often what happens is certain countries or certain women are better at telling their stories and celebrating their stories than others. And there are so many heroes who are not celebrated or their stories aren't told. So we went from Portugal to Austria, to India, to Israel, to America, to South Africa, and found heroines in each place.
And you say that this book will find ladies with, different kinds of ladies with pluck. What do you mean by this?
No matter what you do, I think to step into your light and to really make your contribution, you have to be brave. And you have to have pluck. So even if the environment that you're in, and many of these women lived in very difficult times and still did extraordinary things. But there were some who lived in very good times, but they imagined a different world of being and a different way of being. Someone like Sivanya Ari, she is an entrepreneur, an environmental entrepreneur, and she came to Africa. She visited a rural village, saw that they didn't have water, saw that they didn't have power. And she said, okay, one village at a time, I'm going to change that. And millions of Africans later have water and lights thanks to her. So there's an example of somebody who, perhaps it's not a Helen Suzman, where she was fighting for social justice in South Africa, but she certainly has changed the world, and we're the better for it.
One may wonder, especially ladies who are watching this interview who went through the most in the past, and we've hosted so many motivational speakers on this particular show, and one may wonder, how do you find the courage to be brave? How do you become fearless, and how do you conquer all your adversities? Because some may argue that, I've been through it all and nothing is happening in my life.
Yeah, you need to shift and you need to find the courage somewhere. What I tried to do with these women is uncover what inspired them and what made them carry on.
Sure.
And so each piece is written with a little lesson. The book was actually written for 9 to 12-year-old girls, but I have had such incredible feedback. I've had, my grandmother won't let me read my Goodnight Golda because she's reading it. So younger and older, and I think that the appeal is that for each woman, we made sure there was a takeout that you could really learn and apply to your life. So, for example, that little self-doubt that we all have. For some of us, that's the greatest enemy of all. And yet, it's to be to feel fear, to be scared, and to do it anyway, to know that the world is waiting for your contribution. You actually don't have a choice. You have to give us this.
Indeed. And I understand that most of these heroines come from different parts of the globe. Tell us more about this and the kind of research that went into compiling this book.
It was a 3-year project.
Sure.
And I would say that more than a book, it was a conversation. I landed up having conversations with people all over the world, trying to uncover stories that perhaps weren't told. Some of the women, the American women in general are very good at telling their stories, and so there are tons of American stories or stories of American women. But then there are others that are perhaps less familiar to us. One of my favorites is a woman called Pramila, who became the first Bollywood star. Really? Jewish Bollywood star that we ever have. And the reason is because in India at the time, with the development of the movie industry, good Indian girls, and I speak a lot about this, good Jewish girls, good Indian girls, good black girls, good Greek girls, it was not appropriate for them to be on screen and to be performing. But the Jewish families were a little more liberal. And so Pramila got her opportunity, and what she was the entertainment between the reels. They used to change the reels when they showed a movie, and there was a 15-minute intermission to allow for the changing of the reels, and she was the entertainment in that 15 minutes. She went on to win Miss India. She had her own stunt company. She had her own production company, and she was the first Bollywood star, and she was Jewish. Wow. So a story like that was something that, they were expected heroines. We had people from the Holocaust, girls from the Holocaust. We had girls from the time of the conversos. So they were expected heroes. But then there were those unexpected ones that just gave us moments of sheer delight. And Pramila was one of them. Another one which was very important for me, diversity was really important for me to reflect. And that's not always so easy because, again, I think that there's a leaning towards stories told by certain women and not others. So one of the stories that I loved delving into was Ashaja Araro's story. She's an Ethiopian Jewess, and her family were rescued during Operation Solomon and taken to Israel. And she speaks of her journey in Ethiopia experiencing such anti-Semitism that she lost part of her family. But then going to Israel, which was a land they dreamed of for years and years, thousands of years, and being black in a country that was mainly white. And so she's had to find a place to belong and make space for everyone to feel a sense of belonging, even when perhaps you're not the majority. So that was a magic story for me.
What I quite like about this book, is the diversity in the heroines and the diversity in the stories. As you say, that, it's made of heroines from different parts of the world. So there's a higher and a greater chance of a reader of this book getting some sort of inspiration, if not from an American heroine, maybe from a Jewish or from a German. So there's a higher chance of inspiration and, healing, finding healing of some sort.
I think if you can see other women doing incredible things, I speak about other women fixing your crown. And I think that is very powerful. It doesn't matter where you're from or what your environment is from, whether you were biblical or you're from today. I think we all face the same challenges, the same demons. And if we can inspire each other to step into our own light and make our contribution, that would be amazing.
One interesting quote or phrase that I came across this book is, behind every successful woman is herself, but with a little help from a cheerleading crew. Unpack this for us, can you?
I have an incredibly supportive husband, and I happen to have 3 sons as opposed to daughters. And the irony is not lost on me. But I think that it's been a personal journey for me, and I think for many women, to take ownership of our own journey. And that's from a financial level, from a work, career perspective, from a family level, really to own your space. But you can't do it alone. And I have the great fortune of having an incredibly supportive husband and an incredibly supportive family unit. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who's one of the Goodnight Golda girls, was a big proponent of that, because she fought, as much as she fought for women to be in, she became the justice, she became a chief justice, but as much as she fought for women to be in a career and to make a contribution in the working world, she fought for men to have an opportunity to engage in family life and to be part of their children's lives. That was as much her fight as the fight for herself. And I think that that's really a kind of new age. That's where we need to be. It's about everyone stepping into their light, everyone enjoying and making their contribution in the world, whether you're male or female.
Yeah. You know, but just listening to you, I get the sense that the central themes or the crux of this book is that of bravery, is that of finding courage. I mean, just being courageous. So what is it that you want the readers to take away after reading this book?
I'd like them to look at these women and see the enormous challenges that some of them faced. The fact that they did extraordinary things nevertheless. And then to also look at the woman who perhaps had it slightly easier, but still had to fight their own demons and still had the courage to step forward and do what they needed to do in the world. There's magic in seeing someone come alive and doing what they need to do in the world. And I think we all have to ask ourselves the question, why was I put on earth? Why am I here? Why am I here now with the things that I have and the things that I don't have? Everything should conspire to me making my contribution, and I hope that people get that from this book.
I quite like that example you've made about, you know, some of the women who've made it easier, or like we've had it easier, I beg your pardon, and who sort of inspire other women. But some other women may not look at it that way, saying that, you know, or believing or feeling that I can't be inspired by a woman who's had it easy in life. I want to be inspired by a woman who went through the most and emerged victorious after all. And you also said that those who've had it easy might have their own demons.
Of course. And I think that there are plenty of examples in the book of women who lived in such challenging times. You know, a girl like Anne Frank, who became the world-famous diarist, but who was eventually killed in the Holocaust in Bergen-Belsen. There's someone like Donna Grazia from the 16th century. Donna Grazia, and again, this goes to our perceptions of what opportunities were there for women. Of course, many opportunities were not there, but there were some women who rose above it. Donna Grazia was one of them. She lived in Portugal, and she was a first forced convert, so she was a converso. She was Jewish in secret because she was not allowed to practice her Judaism outwardly. And but she was also a very wealthy spice merchant and businesswoman, and she used her influence and her power to save other conversos who were fleeing from persecution and to find safe haven for them, because she knew what it was like to be living this secret life and to not feel safe. So there's a woman who certainly didn't have it easy. I'm sure she didn't. But she found a way to use her power and her money to save lives and to make other people's lives better.
You know, what makes me so hopeful is that you never know where you find healing. This could be it. This could be it. Lovely chatting to you.
I hope so.
Lovely chatting to you. So where can you get a copy of this book?
Goodnight Golda is available at exclusive books, either at any of the exclusive books or online, exclusivebooks.co.za.
Okay. Batya, lovely chatting to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, that was a word lover, avid reader, spiritual seeker, Torah teacher and publisher Batya Bricker, and we've been discussing her new book, Ilana Stein, titled Goodnight Golda.